Hello, we've got no less than 3 storms affecting Australasia at the moment. We've got the remnants of Tropical Cyclone Carlos still bringing extremely wet weather across the Northern Territory, northern parts of Northern Territory, and that will run its way down towards the northwestern corner of the country. And then we have Tropical Cyclone Diane. It's just offshore, so this should pose no problems as such. And then on the other side of the Coral Sea, very close to Vanuatu, we have what is now known as Tropical Cyclone Atu. Again, that should stay offshore. I don't think we'll see too much wet weather heading towards Vanuatu, but certainly the chance of some very wet weather over the next couple of days as it slides its way further southwards. Coming back into Australia, we've got some heavy rain into the interior. There's our very wet weather which will persist across northwestern parts over the coming days. For the southeast, some rain coming into Sydney, 32 Celsius on Sunday. Bit of a change as that rain nudges its way further northwards. 10-degree drop, so highs of around 22 Celsius as we go into the new working week. For New Zealand over the next couple of days, it's largely fine and dry, but I think for the South Island, some wet and windy weather trying to push its way in. Not too bad, though, for much of the country, and I think Auckland, the North Island, will see some very pleasant weather and a good deal of sunshine. For much of Southeast Asia, it's sunshine and showers with heavy rain for Borneo.
Afghanistan is faced with a huge challenge.
Relations have gone really sour between us and our allies.
We have inflicted considerable damage on the enemy.
The people who make international headlines.
Ultimately, the truth will out.
They want to stop this publication of information that embarrasses them.
Make time for Sir David Frost. Frost over the world on AlJazeera.
This is Al Jazeera. The top stories. Bahrain's opposition groups are expected to put their demands to the Gulf state's crown prince. Anti-government protesters have gathered once again at Pearl Roundabout after riot police left the area on Saturday afternoon. Anti-government protests in Libya are widening. Witnesses are talking about a massacre by government security forces in the city of Benghazi. A doctor there has told Al Jazeera she's seen over 50 dead in the hospital she works in. And in the city of Baida, east of Benghazi, foreign mercenaries have been seen on the streets. Witnesses have told us they're shooting live ammunition at demonstrators. Hundreds of Libyan Americans have been demonstrating outside the White House on Saturday in a show of solidarity with the Libyan people. Al Jazeera's Kimberly Halkett was with the demonstrators and filed this report.
Overwhelmed with emotion. As little by little reports of fresh violence in Benghazi reach Libyan Americans in the United States. Hussein al-Shafi, a political refugee living in Washington, makes contact with his brother-in-law, who tells him protesters are being fired upon.
He said, people are dying, bodies thrown everywhere, shed blood everywhere, and they have no ambulance to take them to the hospital, to the emergency.
Al Jazeera cannot confirm the authenticity of the reports, but phone conversations like this between Washington and Benghazi are repeated for hours as Libyan Americans gather in front of the White House to appeal for help in preventing bloodshed.
It is violence. This group of Libyan Americans says the White House is not doing enough to stop. That's why they're now calling on President Obama to use his position of power to help bring about change inside Libya.
Obama, you have to stand up. Mr. Obama, Libyans are getting massacred and killed.
The White House Friday did issue a written statement condemning the use of violence by governments against peaceful protesters. But these pro-democracy supporters say more must be done to push Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi to end his rule of more than 4 decades.
For 40 years of fear and viciousness and corruption and horrible violence, both psychologically and physically visited upon the Libyan people. We can't accept that, and we want them to condemn what they're seeing inside of Libya right now.
That is why these Libyan Americans say they will not surrender their hopes. They promise to keep the pressure on the White House until they are confident a free and democratic Libya can finally emerge.
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
Kimberly Halkett, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Abdallah Darat is a spokesman for the Enough Gaddafi organization and joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Good to talk to you on Al Jazeera. So you were one of the organizers of the protests that we saw there in the report in Washington. What do you make of the U.S. reaction so far to events happening in Libya?
I believe it's still a bit timid. I mean, at the moment, inside of Libya, it is absolutely critical that the international community intervene. We are witnessing a war crime. Over the last several days, the Gaddafi regime has essentially created a blackout of information, and we're only now beginning to be able to corroborate certain evidence about what's actually happened. Human Rights Watch, in fact, stated that 84 people had died yesterday, and now even some counts inside the country are saying that 200 people have died alone in Benghazi at a minimum, and that 900 more are being injured.
You're right in saying that information is hard to come by in Libya since the government is controlling the internet access. So how do you think people inside the country are organizing themselves? Because what we saw in Egypt, for example, that social media played a big role in organizing the demonstrations in Egypt.
I mean, people are organizing themselves through perhaps less techie means. They're talking to each other in the streets. They're working through kind of social networks that they have. But the difficulty isn't about organizing on the inside at the moment. It's about getting that information out. What Gaddafi has been able to do is to seal off the country so that he can systematically begin to destroy any opposition towards him, and the international community must intervene now. It is getting more vicious and more vicious by the day.
What more will you be doing in Washington?
We hope that we can keep pressuring the international community. I want to maybe perhaps suggest a few things that these mercenaries that are coming in and sniping at protesters. We're hearing evidence that most of the dead are dying from bullet holes to the head, to the ear, to the eye. These mercenaries are being paid through international bank accounts. We are calling on the international community to freeze those bank accounts. We're also hearing reports that forces in the southern valleys of Libya are threatening to burn all the oil fields in the southern part of the country if the international community does not intervene. It is becoming more and more severe, and the lack of information that could be corroborated as it comes out is exasperating the situation.
Well, we've heard no official reaction from the Libyan government so far. Is there anything that Gaddafi can come out and say now that would calm the situation, do you think?
Not at all. I think the loss of life has been not only the magnitude of the loss of life has been enormous, but besides that, I think the means by which the regime has begun to systematically kill people with the use of mercenaries, with using live ammunition against peaceful demonstrators, by sniping people from rooftops, those mechanisms, those means for destruction